Any of those one things individually will shut down FaZe Clan. If any of them are true, they will shut down FaZe Clan permanently. Okay, so the Tfue situation is this. Basically, Tfue is stuck in a contract with FaZe, and he has gotten representation, it looks like, to go to the California Board Labor Commissions and say, all right, like, I don't like what you're doing. And he's trying to do it on, I guess, like what I would say is like two ways. So the first thing he's saying is that the contract is unfair because they're apparently taking up to, he claims they're taking up to 80% of his earnings, including, what was it? Some crazy amount of, so all Twitch, YouTube, and social media, and then half his revenue from touring and appearances are all basically taken from, 80% is being held by FaZe, and then 50% by FaZe on touring and appearances. So contractually, he's saying that's like super unfair, and he wants to debate that. And then secondly, he's making a claim where he says that FaZe also has unscrupulous business practices. He's claiming that they signed an 11-year-old kid. He's claiming that they basically pressured and encouraged him to do like dangerous stuff for YouTube videos, and that he suffered an injury because of this. And as a result, that he wants punitive damages for all of this. And the amount of revenue that FaZe must have made off Tfue in this amount of time is insane, right? Because Tfue pulls in like more than $10 million a year. So there's two parts of this that I think are important. Number one is the contractual aspect of it, which is, in my opinion, fine. Like, I think we have to separate the business from the moral side of the issue, right? On the business side, it's fine. You sign a contract. You have an obligation to fulfill that contract. That is the basis of which our society exists upon. Without having that, you have nothing. So yeah, it sucks. I mean, like, but he signed a contract. That's what he agreed to. On the ethical side, it is extremely shitty for FaZe Clan to do this, right? It's so bad for FaZe Clan to actually take like 80% of revenue. I think in the worst contracts I've seen them take like 20%. And that's like, taking 20% is like, we do all of your YouTube, we do all your Twitch, we do all your social media, we do everything for you, and we consult with you on like all your content and everything. And like in that case, you take like 20%. Taking 80% is insane. It's completely unjustifiable from an ethical standpoint. But it's contractually fine. Like, it's something that I think is probably going to get upheld by the Labor Commission. What I'm more interested in is this idea of like signing an 11-year-old gamer and then like the whole like suffering an injury or stuff like this. This is kind of being served alcohol, but he's under 21, stuff like this. This is stuff that just goes on in the esports industry because the esports industry is young, right? And any industry that is young is going to have this kind of thing going on. Like, you have gamer houses, you have kids acting up in those houses and stuff like that. But I think what is going to happen here is that the labor commit. So there's a couple of things that could happen. So FaZe can and should and probably will immediately release Tfue from contract. Right now that this is public, FaZe would be crazy not to be like, okay, Tfue can do whatever he wants. But because this complaint has already been submitted to the Labor Commission, it's likely they're going to hear this case. And if that's the case, and these claims, the whole 11-year-old thing and the whole 21-year-old like drinking thing becomes substantiated, FaZe is donezo. I mean, the Labor Commission will just shut them down, right? I said before that the state of Washington shut down my favorite Mexican restaurant because they left their fridge open too long, right? Like the government is very serious when it comes to things like this. And there's another problem where I think that there's a claim that FaZe may not have registered as a talent agency, which if that's the case, that's another big thing. All of these things can just result in FaZe just being unable to do business. Like, FaZe just literally shuts down. The state of California just comes in and shuts them down. I would say there's probably a 90% chance that FaZe Clan gets shut down as a result of this, because if these claims are substantiated. And as a result, it's going to change esports forever, because what's going to happen is we're already sort of moving in this direction, but it's going to happen real fast. There's not going to be any gaming houses. There's not going to be any like everything's going to be very by the book. Everyone's going to have to be documented, because when a player goes nuclear like this and this happens, there's just too much liability on the part of the organization to get away with it. So the kind of like the CLG that I was able to run 2 years ago is just not possible now because of things like this, right? Like these interpretations of this. You could just say like these are kind of things that just kind of happen, but the thing is like it is the business's responsibility, right? Like these are profit-earning businesses that they need to stay legal with this stuff and they need to enforce this. So this is not okay. And the Labor Commission is going to come down really hard on FaZe Clan for this. So if I had to summarize this issue, I would say that number one, I don't think that any of the contractual stuff is a problem from a legal standpoint. If it's true, it's an incredibly unethical thing to do. And it exemplifies why players and teams, people that are players or influencers, should always get representation. Always get representation. There are people that will represent you for free. There are people that will consult you for free. There are people that can help. Always get representation. Do not be a 20-year-old kid and go into signing a contract. That is an insane thing. Like, you just don't have the experience because these guys that do it every day, they're going to roll you under the table. And that all that stuff contractually and this kind of stuff, like, yeah, I think he's obligated to pay those. I think he's obligated to give up that percentage of revenue, and he should not have done that if he took the time to be informed. Now, that said, it's probably pretty likely that he gets a lot of this money back, because I think that FaZe is going to get shut down on the auspice of these other claims versus the contractual problems. So ethically, I mean, I don't, if this gets substantiated, even if the government doesn't shut down FaZe, I don't know how they come back from this in from a brand standpoint. It's just gonna blow up so bad. Was Tfue's intent to try to get FaZe shut down? I don't think so. I think what probably happened, speaking from a lot of personal experience, as a player, he probably was he probably realized once he started to make a lot of revenue as an influencer that he was getting a bad deal. And so he tried to get out of his contract, and then FaZe made a big mistake, which is they tried to hold him to contract. So probably what happened was Tfue had a private conversation with FaZe, said, hey, I think I'm getting screwed by this deal. I'd like to get out of my contract. FaZe said, no, you are beholden to the contract. We are legally able to hold you to it because you signed your rights here. We're going to hold you to contract, because FaZe thought the revenue was more important. And in my experience, when a player comes to you and you're as an esports team, you always try to find a compromise with the player. You never hold them to contract. That's a very unless they're really being unreasonable. Like unless they're just like they lost like a game or something and they're like, yeah, I just don't want to play anymore. And they're like, dude, you're under a contract. You got to play. Like obviously then. But if a player thinks they're not getting a fair deal, if you're running a good business, I think you have an obligation to like not just be like, the worst answer is like, we're holding you to contract. There's nothing you can do, because then that encourages the player to do this. So I think what probably happened was Tfue went to FaZe. FaZe said, we're holding the contract. Tfue said, all right, went to go get representation, right? Went to an attorney, figured out his options. And then the attorney probably educated him on all the possibilities that he could do as a result of his... as a result of like where he was, right? And they both determined together that the best option was the nuclear one, and it probably is, right? Because it only benefits Tfue, right? It makes Tfue look really good. It makes FaZe look really bad. It is probably going to get his revenue back, and like everything should probably be fine. If you're 18 years or older, you're trusted by the United States government to understand the terms of what you're reading, and then when you sign it, it's legally binding, right? But the whole idea of not that's why like you have to have a legal guardian to sign a contract before that, because an 11-year-old person can't reasonably make a decision on like sharing revenue or things like that, right? So the real reason for why an 11-year-old can't sign a contract, it's illegal to do, is because they can't make an informed decision on signing a contract. And sometimes you can argue that a person older than 18 can't do that. And sometimes courts will uphold it, but not usually. And I would argue that they ought not to. They probably shouldn't ever. But the only situation where I think a contract should be void is if they were signed under duress, which means like you hold a person at gunpoint and you say, hey, I'm going to shoot you if you don't give me 50% of your revenue. Like obviously that kind of contract shouldn't be enforceable to make you sign, but in any other situation, like it should be. There's some people that can say like, oh, like I wasn't informed enough to sign this contract, but that really shouldn't be a defense. I thought that, I don't know if this is right, but can't anybody, it's 18, right? Otherwise you need a legal guardian. Because I know that we had 16-year-old players on CLG and we had to have their parents sign with them. And we had to like have a meeting with the parent and the players, and we had to talk to them about it, and then everybody had to sign and agree. I'm pretty sure that like if you're under 18, you can't sign a contract like this without your parental representation. I'm not sure though, but that's how we always ran business. How would a contract with a cognition impaired mental illness work? Well, the idea would be like if you go to an insane asylum and you sign a person that has severe schizophrenia, and you say, "Hey, the pink elephant told me to tell you to give me 50% of your income," and then they sign it. Like obviously that doesn't uphold an code of law, right? Like yeah, okay. Yee with the more realistic example, like if you have an old grandpa, right? And they're like, oh, and you're like, hi, grandpa, I'm your son. And it's like, it's not really like your son. It's not really your grandpa. And they're like, oh, hello, Jimmy. And then you're like, okay, yeah, give me all your money. And then like that stuff like can't be enforceable, right? But in general, like if you're in good mental health and you are over the age of 18 and you sign a contract, you are enforced that contract. That again, you have to think about the way that precedents like go, right? You need to be able to have contracts enforceable, or we just can't do business. Like we just can't do business as a country if we don't have that. Keep in mind the state is possibly investigating business practices so that they find something illegal or illicit, they can shut down the business or invalidate the contract for illegality. Yeah. And I think that's going to happen here. I think what's going to happen is if the state is able to substantiate the claim that they signed an 11-year-old, or substantiate the claim that they gave alcohol to underage kids, or substantiate the claim that they undertook dangerous stunts at the encouragement of the company, or substantiate the claim that they are not registered properly as a talent agency, any of those one things individually will shut down FaZe Clan. If any of them are true, they will shut down FaZe Clan permanently.